My name is Serafina Bellwether, and I am 32 years old. I live in the beautiful and often chilly town of Portsmouth, Maine. Life here is usually quiet and moves at a pace that matches the gentle ebb and flow of the Atlantic Ocean. I have always been a woman who appreciates order and loyalty. I worked hard to build a life that felt like a sanctuary. For 6 years, I believed I had found the person I would grow old with. Her name was Alina. We were married in a small ceremony on the coast, with the salt spray in the air and the sound of seagulls overhead. Alina was a striking woman. She was what many people call a big, beautiful woman, and she carried her curves with a confidence that I deeply admired. She had a presence that filled a room, and for a long time, I felt like the luckiest woman in the world to be the one she came home to every night. We lived in a charming house with wood floors and a view of the harbor. My days were spent working as a senior archivist for a local historical society, where I meticulously organized the stories of people who lived long before us. I loved the sense of permanence that history provided. I thought my own marriage was just as solid as the stone foundations of the buildings I studied. However, even the strongest foundations can have hidden cracks that you do not notice until the whole structure starts to lean. The first signs of trouble were subtle. Alina started staying late at her office. She worked as a high-level executive for a major regional logistics company, a job that required her to be sharp and professional. I noticed she was spending more and more time on her laptop in the evenings, but she would always tilt the screen away when I walked into the room. When I asked her what she was working on, she would give me a short answer about quarterly reports or supply chain issues. She became distant in a way that felt cold, like the winter winds that blow off the Piscataqua River. Our physical connection, which had once been so warm and vibrant, started to wither. She told me she was tired or stressed or just not in the mood. I tried to be supportive because I knew her job was demanding. But then the nature of her requests started to change. She began talking about things that were completely foreign to me. She started mentioning things like bondage and discipline and the idea of sadism and masochism. At first, I thought she was just looking for a way to spice things up. I was open to trying new things because I loved her and wanted her to be happy, but it soon became clear that this was not about us. It was about something she wanted that did not involve me. One evening, after a particularly cold dinner, she sat me down and told me she wanted out of our marriage. She said she had realized that she needed to pursue her interests in the alternative lifestyle of bondage and discipline. She told me that she had been hiding her true self for years and that she needed to find a dominant partner who could give her what I could not. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces right there in our living room. She looked at me with eyes that seemed like they belonged to a stranger. She said she had already started exploring this world and that she wanted me to find someone else so she could be free to find the masters and dominance she craved. She even had the nerve to suggest that I was too vanilla and that I would never understand her needs for things like shibari, which is the Japanese art of rope bondage. I was devastated, but more than that, I was confused. We had been together for 6 years, and I felt like I had been living with a ghost. I started to wonder how much of our life together had been a lie. She told me she had lied about her age when we first met, making herself out to be younger and more aligned with my own life path. She lied about her past and her preferences. The woman I loved was a fiction she had created. The problem grew worse when she refused to leave the house immediately. She stayed in the guest room, but she was brazen about her new life. She would come home late, smelling of expensive leather and strange perfumes. She became an exhibitionist, telling me stories about how she loved to go to the nude beaches down in Ogunquit to let men and women watch her. She seemed to take a sick pleasure in telling me how much she enjoyed being watched by strangers. She was no longer the professional executive I knew. She was someone who craved the thrill of public sex and the gaze of the crowd. The situation reached a breaking point when she left her laptop open in the kitchen one morning while she went to take a long shower. My own laptop was being repaired, and I needed to check my electronic mail for a work emergency. When I woke the screen, I did not find her work files. Instead, I found a website called Fetish Life. She had left herself logged in, and the world that opened up before my eyes was more horrifying than anything I could have imagined. I saw thousands of messages and photographs. Alina had been using the website for months, if not years, to contact men and women who identified as dominants. She had created a profile where she described herself as a submissive who was desperate to be used and controlled. There were photographs of her that made my blood run cold. There were pictures of her tied up in complex rope patterns exactly like the shibari she had mentioned. There were pictures of her in various states of undress in public places. One series of messages caught my eye in particular. She had written a long story about driving down Interstate 95 for over 150 miles with her breasts fully exposed, recording the reactions of the drivers who passed her. She was bragging about her exhibitionism to strangers while I was at home wondering if she was safe. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as I realized that she had been living this double life right under my nose. I started to dig deeper into the files on the computer. I found a hidden folder that contained hundreds of high-resolution images and videos. These were not just quick snapshots. They were professional-grade photos of her participating in intense sessions with various dominant partners. I found records of her travel, showing that she had used company time and resources to meet these people across the state and even down into Massachusetts. She had used her company credit card for hotel rooms where she held these sessions. The level of deception was staggering. I realized that she had not just been unfaithful to me, she had been unfaithful to her own career and her own professional ethics. I tried to talk to her one last time. I wanted to see if there was any shred of the woman I married left inside her. I asked her if she realized how much she was hurting me. I asked her if she had any respect for the life we had built. She laughed in my face. She told me that I was a bore and that she was finally living the life she was meant to live. She said that her career was untouchable and that what she did in her private time was none of my business. She called me a pathetic librarian who didn't know how to handle a real woman. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I have always been a quiet person, but you should never mistake silence for weakness. I am an archivist. I know how to organize information. I know how to build a case. And I know how to ensure that the truth is preserved for everyone to see. I spent the next 2 weeks meticulously gathering every piece of evidence I could find. I used my skills to track her movements through her own digital footprint. I compiled the messages where she discussed using her office as a meeting place for her dominant partners. I saved the photos she took in the company car while she was supposed to be visiting clients. I printed out the logs from the Fetish Life website that showed she was online during business hours, engaging in explicit conversations. I put together several identical packages. Each package contained a cover letter written in a clear, professional tone. I did not use emotional language or insults. I simply presented the facts. I included the photographs of her exhibitionism, including the stories about her stunts on Interstate 95. I included the evidence of her financial misconduct with the company credit card. I included the messages where she spoke disparagingly about her bosses and the company she worked for. I addressed the first package to her direct supervisor. The second package was addressed to the chief executive officer of the logistics company. The third was sent to the head of human resources. I wanted to make sure there was no way for this to be swept under the rug. I waited for the right moment. The final straw came one Tuesday morning. She was getting ready to head into the office, and she saw me looking at a photo of us from our wedding day. She snatched the photo out of my hand and threw it in the trash can. She told me to stop being so sentimental and to get over it. She said she was bringing a new master over to the house that evening and that I needed to be gone by 5 o'clock in the afternoon. She treated me like an intruder in my own home. She treated me with such a lack of respect that I felt a cold calm settle over my heart. As soon as she drove away in her fancy company car, I walked down to the post office. I sent the packages via certified mail so that I would have proof they were delivered and signed for. I knew that by the next morning her world would start to crumble. I spent the rest of the day packing my things. I didn't need much. I took my books, my personal records, and the items that were truly mine. I left the house and checked into a quiet bed and breakfast on the other side of town. The next few days were a blur of waiting. I knew how corporate structures worked. They would have to verify the information. They would have to conduct an internal investigation. But the evidence I provided was undeniable. It wasn't just about her sexual preferences. It was about the fact that she had brought her alternative lifestyle into the workplace and used company funds to finance it. She had violated every professional conduct policy in their handbook. About a week later, I received a frantic phone call from Alina. Her voice was shaking, and she was crying. She told me that she had been called into a meeting with the chief executive officer and the legal team. They had presented her with the evidence. She had been placed on immediate administrative leave. They told her that they were conducting a full audit of her department and her expenses. She asked me if I knew anything about it. I stayed silent for a long time, listening to her sob on the other end of the line. Then, I simply said that I hoped she was finding the intensity she was looking for. I hung up and blocked her number. Over the next month, the fallout continued. Because of the nature of the photographs and the public indecency she had bragged about, the company decided that she was a major liability. They did not just fire her, they made sure that the reasons for her termination were documented. In her high-level professional circle, reputation is everything. Word spreads fast in the logistics and shipping industry in New England. She was given a 30-day window to vacate her office and wrap up her affairs, but she was escorted from the building by security. Her career, which she thought was untouchable, was over. She had spent 15 years climbing the corporate ladder, and she fell off of it in a single afternoon. She lost her high salary, her company car, and her standing in the community. Without her income, she couldn't afford the mortgage on our house. She had to sell it quickly and at a loss. She ended up moving into a small, cramped apartment in a much less desirable part of town. I heard from a mutual friend that the dominants and masters she was so eager to serve didn't want anything to do with her once she didn't have money or a high-status job to impress them with. It turns out that the world she wanted to join so badly was just as fickle as she was. As for me, I stayed in Portsmouth. I found a lovely small apartment that overlooks a park. I continue my work at the Historical Society, finding peace in the quiet stacks of paper and the stories of the past. I learned a hard lesson about trust and the masks that people wear. But I also learned that I am capable of standing up for myself. I am not the weak, vanilla woman she thought I was. I am someone who values respect and honesty, and I will never let anyone treat me like I am disposable again. The house we shared was eventually bought by a young couple who are starting a family. I sometimes walk past it and feel nothing but a sense of relief. The ghosts of our marriage are gone, replaced by new life and new memories. I recently went on a date with a woman who works as a botanist. She is kind, and she listens when I talk. We spent 3 hours talking about the different types of moss that grow on the Maine coastline. It was simple, and it was honest. There were no hidden folders, no secret lives, and no lack of respect. Sometimes, the best revenge is simply living a life that is true and good, while the person who tried to break you has to deal with the ruins they created for themselves. Elena thought she could discard me like a piece of trash, but she forgot that an archivist knows how to handle the things that others try to throw away. She wanted a life of intensity and drama, and she certainly got it. But the fire she started ended up consuming everything she worked for. I am still standing, and I am stronger than I have ever been. The salt air in Portsmouth feels cleaner now, and the future looks as wide and open as the horizon over the ocean. I have reclaimed my name and my life, and that is the greatest victory of all. I often think about that drive she took down Interstate 95. She thought she was being brave and free, showing herself to the world. But the truth is, she was just showing how little she valued herself and the people who cared about her. She wanted people to watch her, and now, in a way she never intended, everyone knows exactly who she is. Her career is a memory, and her reputation is a cautionary tale. I, on the other hand, am no longer a footnote in her story. I am the author of my own, and I think the ending I wrote for us was exactly what she deserved. The silence of my new apartment is not lonely. It is peaceful. It is the sound of a life that is finally mine again. I have learned that you cannot build a future on a foundation of lies. If you try, eventually the weight of the truth will come crashing down. I just happen to be the one who gave the truth a little push. And as the waves continue to crash against the rugged Maine shore, I know that I am exactly where I am supposed to be. I am Serafina Bellwether, and I have found my way back to the light. The coastal breeze is cold, but it no longer chills me to the bone because I am wrapped in the warmth of my own self-respect. The betrayal was deep and the pain was real, but the revenge was poetic. She lost the world she thought she owned, and I gained a world that is truly mine. I sometimes wonder if she thinks about that morning in the kitchen or the packages that arrived at her office. I wonder if she realizes that it wasn't my lack of interest in her lifestyle that ended things, but her lack of respect for our life together. Probably not. People like Alina often blame everyone but themselves for their failures. But it doesn't matter what she thinks anymore. Her thoughts are no longer my concern. I have archived that chapter of my life and placed it on a high shelf where it can no longer be reached. I have moved on to a new volume, one where the characters are honest and the plot is clear. And in this story, I am the hero. The long winters in Maine can be hard, but they always give way to spring. And as the first flowers begin to poke through the melting snow, I feel a sense of hope that I haven't felt in a very long time. The world is big, and there is so much more to see than the inside of a dark room or the side of a highway. I am looking forward to seeing it all, one quiet, honest step at a time. My life in Portsmouth is a good one, and I am proud of the woman I have become through all of this. I am no longer defined by the person who lied to me. I am defined by the truth I told and the strength I found to tell it, and that is a story worth preserving. Sometimes I sit on the pier and watch the ships come in from the sea. They have traveled long distances and weathered many storms to get back to the harbor. I feel a lot like those ships. I have been through the storm, and I have felt the waves threatening to pull me under. But I found my way back to the shore. I found my way home. And the harbor has never looked more beautiful than it does right now. I know that there will be more challenges in the future, because that is just the way life is. But I also know that I have the tools to handle them. I have my integrity, I have my skills, and I have my voice. And as long as I have those things, I will be just fine. The story of Serafina and Alina is over, but the story of Serafina is just beginning. And I have a feeling that this next part is going to be the best part of all. The light on the water is sparkling like diamonds, and the air is filled with the promise of a new day. I take a deep breath and smile. For the first time in 6 years, I am truly free, and that freedom is the sweetest revenge of all. I have learned that respect is the most important part of any relationship, and without it, everything else is just smoke and mirrors. Alina chose the smoke and mirrors, and she got lost in them. I chose the truth, and it set me free. The town of Portsmouth continues to go about its business, and I am a part of it, a steady and reliable part of the history of this place. My name will be remembered for the work I do and the kindness I show, while her name will be a footnote in a corporate file. That is the way it should be. The order of the world has been restored, and I am at peace with it. The archives are organized, the truth has been told, and the future is bright. I walk back to my apartment, the sound of my footsteps steady on the pavement. I have a lot to look forward to, and I am ready for whatever comes next. The past is behind me, and the revenge is complete. It is time to start living for myself again. And that is exactly what I plan to do. The end of the story is not a sad one. It is a beginning. It is the moment when the survivor stops surviving and starts thriving. And as I close the door to my apartment and look out at the harbor, I know that I am thriving. I am whole, I am strong, and I am Serafina Bellwether. And that is more than enough. The journey was long and the road was rocky, but the destination was worth every step. I have found my way, and I am never going back. The stars are starting to come out over the Atlantic, and they look like tiny lights guiding me forward. I am ready for the journey. I am ready for the life that is waiting for me. And I am ready to be happy. The revenge was a necessary part of the healing, but the healing is the true goal. And I am healing every single day. The power of the truth is a wonderful thing, and I am glad I had the courage to use it. Now, I can rest easy knowing that justice was served and that I am free to be exactly who I am. The world is a beautiful place when you are living in the light, and I am living in the light at last. I have learned that even in the quietest life, there can be great drama and great victory. You just have to be willing to stand up for what is right. And I did. I stood up for myself, and I won. The story of my revenge is a part of me now, but it doesn't define me. What defines me is what I do with my life from this point on, and I plan to make it a life worth living. A life filled with love and honesty and the salt air of Portsmouth, Maine. A life that is truly, beautifully mine.